Welcome to the SCDC NAACP School Board Candidate Forum. Welcoming our president, Dr. Juanita Miller.
Greetings, everyone, and thank you for taking the time out tonight to join in on this candidates forum. The club will not take care of any of its business because we want to proceed with giving the candidates an opportunity to introduce themselves and their platform. Tonight, representing the NAACP is Ms. Linda Thornton Thomas, president of the Prince George's County NAACP. Ms. Thomas.
Yes, greetings everyone and welcome. And thank each of you for joining us this evening. We are excited. I know you will find this forum most informative. So I look forward to your questions and comments in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. For full disclosure, the NAACP is a nonpartisan organization and does not endorse any candidates. And the candidates for school board are nonpartisan. So there is no conflict of interest with the NAACP participating. Let's see. I'd like to first start off with a moment of silence for our schools, our students, our professionals, our paraprofessionals, and all personnel in our school system for their safety and security, and with prayers for a smooth school year, smooth running school year, and with safety for all. Thank you. Now we will begin with District 2, Mr. Jonathan Briggs. Mr. Briggs, and is it Mr. because I wasn't able to distinguish that, but Mr. Briggs has dedicated his life to improving education for children and families. First as a classroom teacher and now as an education policy expert and advocate. John's career in education includes time served as an education program specialist with the U.S. Department of Education. He served as an acting legislative assistant in the office of Congresswoman Marsha L. Fudge, where he focused on education, as well as healthcare, job creation, and civil rights. He has also served in the Deputy Mayor of Education's office in Washington, D.C. in 2017, working on the Safe Passage program to ensure that all young people feel safe before, during, and after school as part of the program's commitment to youth safety. He also holds credentials from the Johns Hopkins School of Education and a graduate certificate from the Harvard Graduate School of Education. Throughout John's career, he has stood up for the most vulnerable and advocated for the most effective policies to help students and schools succeed. And he plans to bring that same focus and attention to Prince George's County Public Schools. Thank you for joining us. Ms. Thornton Thomas will now ask the question.
Okay. All right. Hello there, Mr. Briggs, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. I have a question, and my questions are coming from our membership as well as some of our neighborhoods, okay? And I want to talk about policy, of course, that's why we're here. The responsibility of the Board of Education is to establish guidelines and develop model policies and the implementation of such policies for codes of student conduct. So my question is, over the past few years, students' disciplinary issues have increased, especially when they are a little bit disrespectful and their verbal abuse has been towards the staff. Now, in order to ensure positive interaction and academic growth in the classroom, what policies would you consider changing or developing to decrease the behavior?
Well, first, thank you so much for the invite. Thank you to you all for just having this opportunity to speak with you. And thanks for the question. I think my start would be having restorative practices in classrooms. I think it's really important that educators in schools are taking into account the diverse experiences that students have, and then finding ways to, through bringing in outside professionals or working with other organizations, bringing in the right types of groups and leaders to support in building student outcomes. So I think that's the first thing I would say. To get more specific, I think that, there are a ton of policies and practices that are in place. For me, I think it's really hard to answer this question because ultimately it's going to be taking stock on each individual school's kind of challenges. And I think that those could be behavioral challenges. So if you have students who, have a significant amount of IEPs or other behavioral issues, that's going to be very different from students who just may need more structure in the school building. So I think that as a school board member, I would want to take stock on what specific issues schools are facing and then have almost like a tiered approach towards how do we address schools that are kind of at the bottom tier that have very significant needs, and when those schools are maybe at the top that are, more minor interventions that need to happen in the classroom, and then really put together effective practices and policies that would address those student behaviors.
All right, thank you. All right, so we're moving on to the next person, right?
And that will be Jenni Pompi. Jenni Pompi is the proud parent of 2 Prince George's County Public Schools students who have been attending District 2 schools for more than 10 years. A graduate of the University of Maryland, Jenni has lived in Prince George's County for more than 25 years. She has resided in Greenbelt for the past 4 years, lived in Riverdale Park for 13 years prior, and also spent several years as a College Park resident. As the former PTO president of Riverdale Elementary, Jenni is a proven advocate with a track record of success, be it fighting for adequate drinking water or for vital repairs to HVAC equipment. Jenni has been advocating for safe, healthy schools for more than a decade. Jenni Pompi is the proud parent of 2, well, I mentioned that, Jenni has been advocating for safe, healthy schools for more than a decade. She's a graduate of the University of Maryland, and I think I'm repeating this information. With that, Jenni has been an advocate for safe and healthy schools for more than a decade. With that, Jenni Pompi, District 2. District 3.
It's District 2. You were right the first time.
Oh, okay. District 2. I apologize. Ms. Thornton?
Sorry. Jenni, how are you?
I'm good, Ms. Thornton. How are you?
Good.
Thank you for having
Hi.
us here today.
Happy to have you. I'm going to ask you the same question, and I'm going to repeat it. So if you didn't hear all the information, I want to make sure you have all of that information. Now, over the past few years, students' disciplinary issues have increased, especially disrespect and verbal abuse towards the staff. Right? And in order to ensure positive interaction and academic growth in the classroom, what policies would you consider changing or developing to decrease that behavior?
Okay, thank you so much. I also agree with Mr. Briggs that I think introducing more restorative practices into our classroom is a great idea. We're already doing that in a lot of our community schools. But I think along with that, what's really important is that we're training our teachers in these restorative practices, because it's not enough to just, say that we're not going to be suspending students or that we're going to be, we need to give teachers the tools to actually deal with that. We need to give teachers the tools to actually implement these restorative practices effectively through, through teacher training and teacher outreach. And I also would love to see us, increase our mental health staff in schools, because I think if we have mental health staff who are actually trained to deal with students and trained in conflict resolution, that can also help these issues. It's going to help with our restorative practices. It can really help our teachers build these relationships with our students, because I think relationship building is really key here. And I think the earlier we start it, the better. I think we need to start our restorative practices as early as, kindergarten and first grade. I think a lot of times we sort of break into doing them in middle school and high school. And at that point, some of that trust and some of those relationships are already broken. So I think it's building trust sooner and earlier, and just making sure that our teachers have the training that they need to implement these practices, because I know a lot of our teachers have been struggling with that, struggling with what does it mean to introduce restorative practices in our classroom, and how do we do that effectively? Because, you know, as you said, the teachers have been dealing with a lot of behavioral issues lately, and we need to make sure that they have the tools themselves and the training themselves to effectively implement those practices.
Thank you, Ms. Pompi. And I want you to know, all of you to know that at the end of the question and answer period, you will have at least 2 minutes to discuss your platform as a representative on the Prince George's County Board of Education. Next, we will go to District 3. Did Ms. Boozer-Strother show up? Is she in the queue? If not, we'll move on to.
No, ma'am.
Okay, then we'll move on to District 6 with Branndon Jackson. Branndon, let me read his resume, was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, and moved to Detroit, Michigan before making the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area home. His diverse upbringing allowed him to culminate the values and work ethic he learned from growing up in the Midwest with the political savvy of the nation's capital. Growing up in the inner city, Branndon faced insurmountable odds such as financial and economic instability, violence, crime, and family challenges. Yet, Branndon knew that education could change his entire trajectory. After graduating from high school, Branndon attended Alabama A&M University, where his life changed in more ways than one. During his second semester, while attempting to save his friend with cerebral palsy from a speeding car, Branndon was involved in an accident that left him with 17 broken bones, a severe head bleed, and in a coma. Due to his injuries, Branndon could no longer attend school or pursue his dreams of basketball, and had to return to the crime-ridden environment he fought so hard to overcome. During this time, he pushed himself to learn how to walk and become completely independent again. Branndon fully credits his recovery to his trust and faith in God and the unconditional support of his family. Before his healing process was complete, Branndon went against the doctor's wishes and enrolled in college for the summer semester. The freshman who came in with dreams and ambitions of changing his future and community did not let this life-changing accident derail his goals. He went on to serve as senior class president of the Student Government Association, started advocacy groups to better serve the student population, and graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Economics. Now, as an economist by discipline, Branndon has worked to promote economic empowerment in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area and on an international platform. In addition, Branndon currently serves as the resident economist for the Prince George's County Workforce Development Committee. In this role, he works to identify opportunities to strengthen Prince George's County workforce and create partnerships with institutions that could leverage the strategic human capital of the county. Branndon also works for a Fortune 100 company, mainly focusing on connected communities and smart city infrastructure. Branndon leverages his talent to advocate for economic issues like food equity, access to capital, and business development domestically and internationally. He partners with various organizations, NAACP, Prince George's County Mutual Aid, Prince George's County Get Out the Vote, Prince George's Changemakers, Just Us, and Kappa Alpha Psi Incorporated to engage the community. Branndon acquired his educational background from Georgetown University School of Foreign Service and McDonough School of Business, master's degree, and Johns Hopkins Carey Business School, MBA, and Alabama A&M University New School of Business. Mr. Branndon Jackson.
Hey, hello, Mr. Jackson. And
hello, thank you. Hello?
great, can you hear me? Hello, Mr. Jackson, can you hear me? Okay. Yes.
Hello?
Okay. Okay. Yes.
We
Can
can
you
hear
hear me
you.
now? Okay,
Yes.
good.
Okay, great. All right. Mr. Jackson, I'm going to ask you the same question. And it begins with, over the past few years, students' disciplinary issues have increased, especially disrespect and verbal abuse towards the staff. In order to ensure positive interaction and academic growth in the classroom, what policies would you consider changing or developing to decrease that behavior?
Yeah, first I want to say thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity to present myself before such a distinguished group. But I agree with everything that's been said so far about restorative practices, adding more mental health professionals to the schools in order to help kind of dissect this thing. I do think that this is a problem that's just a microcosm of what's going on in the world. I think, after the pandemic, or I don't want to say it was after the pandemic because we still have COVID is still, prevalent, but I would just say transitioning out of, I guess the tougher part of the pandemic, for lack of a better expression, I guess we still have to really understand the ramifications what COVID had on us as a society. And I personally think that when children act out, there's always a reason, whether it's being isolated for a long period of times and what psychological impacts that it had on the students. So one of the things I think is being able to put children in a better position. So one of the policies that I developed or look to increase is about that educational professional support in the classrooms. And also I will look at developing a pipeline for educational professionals to be coupled with teachers. And I know we do have positions like that, but I would definitely, as a school board member, be willing to put more resources and help cultivate a pipeline where we can have educational professionals in the classroom to help teachers with classroom management. And I feel like if we put teachers in a position to teach, and we put educational professionals, support them around the teachers, I think that will help us better manage the classroom. And also, I would like to work with the CEO and the team to develop a comprehensive classroom management course. I know some schools have classroom management courses individualized to certain schools, and some people that are educators may have taken these courses in college, but I would like for it to be a standardized classroom management course post-pandemic that kind of tap into subject matter experts in the industry to talk about how to deal with, the outbreak of violence and, disruption that's been going on in the classroom. Because this is not an isolated event to Prince George's County. These things are happening nationwide. So working with SMEs to develop a comprehensive course to make it available for teachers, giving teachers those resources and able to equip them with tools to execute at a higher level. Also, like I said, restorative practices, and also with the mental health professionals kind of peeling this thing from a holistic standpoint. I think those would be the things that I will champion as a school board member.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Next, we will have Ashley Kearney, and let me pull up her resume. Just a minute, Ashley. Branndon, Ashley. Ashley Kearney is an award-winning educator with over a decade of secondary mathematics teaching experience, inclusive of in-person and virtual learning, over 6 years of effectiveness teaching development coaching in both school-based and alternative teacher development programs spanning the Northeast region, education-related board leadership, and legislative experience. Although she attended school in the District of Columbia during her foundational years as a learner, where she credits her love of self and learning to the educators and community leaders who nurtured the whole child and shielded her from realities of living in a public housing community in Southeast, excuse me, that faced many challenges with drug abuse and addiction and violence. She has also experienced education in rural Georgia and has roots in Prince George's County, Maryland. Ashley's mom transitioned from DC to Prince George's County public school system following the passing of both parents. Both Ashley's mom and father later graduated from Central High. Ashley has been a proud resident of Prince George's County for 10 years, including homeowner for 6 years in District 6. When tasked with helping to raise her oldest niece, she trusted the leadership at her community's neighborhood school. Ashley is an equity-minded leader and strategic thinker who desires safer, empowering, and joyous learning environments that prepare all students to be knowledgeable of themselves and able to solve problems impacting their community and the world. Her emphasis are school safety, school infrastructure, community, and community schools. Ashley Kearney, Ms. Thornton.
Yes. Hello, Ashley. How are you? And welcome. Good. All right. Ashley, I'm going to read the question again. Now, over the past few years, students' disciplinary issues have increased, especially disrespect and verbal abuse towards the staff. In order to ensure positive interaction and academic growth in the classroom, what policies would you consider changing or developing to decrease the behavior?
And thank you for the question, and thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. I'm also going to shout out Jonathan for having to take that question first. How difficult that must be. But as an educator, and even in my current work, I know that no issue is an isolated issue. So there's always intersecting issues tied to why students might behave a certain way. When we think about policy, the first thing that I would take a look at is trying to do an equity audit of the student rights and responsibilities, probably the handbook. We cannot think about education as it is today without looking at how we need to change certain policies that exist. And not to say that all of it is bad, it might just be tweaking some things. And talking to leaders that I've trained and policies that I've worked on involving student discipline, you find that leaders will say, their hands are tied. So I agree with restorative practices, but we have to first define what restorative practices might mean, how our leaders engage with restorative practices in their schools, setting guidance at the district level, what that might look like to provide technical assistance to them to give to the schools, and ensure that the context is included in that as well. So again, I agree with everything that my peers have said around restorative practice, but I think starting with the rights and responsibilities handbook that already exists, and thinking about the way that we can change those policies to reflect the vision that we want to see in Prince George's County would be the first thing that I would go about. I also should say that in classrooms with language, a lot of times culturally and things that are going on in the classroom involving language, we can't deem that as in my opinion, a classroom management issue. So defining classroom management with structures and routines and those types of things can exist, and disrespectful language and behavior could still happen. So making sure that we're not putting educators at fault for the behavior of the students, but also acknowledging the policies and procedures and practice that need to go in place to provide a supportive learning environment that is safe, that is encouraging, that does allow a class to happen and to meet the needs of our students so that we can decrease some of these instances in our spaces. Thank you so much for that question.
Great, thank you, Ms. Kearney.
Dr. Miller, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. I was saying I'd like to be fair in this process, and even though board member Pamela Boozer-Strother was unable to make it today, I would like to extend the courtesy of letting the audience hear a little bit about her background. Ms. Pamela Boozer-Strother currently serves the 3rd District as the school board member. She was born in Prince George's County and returned 16 years ago as a resident of Brentwood in District 3. At that time, she became an active leader of community organizations and town committees focused on children, education, and economic development. In 2018, she was recognized for her years of community service with the Mighty Joe Impact Award from Joe's Movement Emporium. Ms. Boozer-Strother is parent of a 6th grader at Mount Rainier Elementary and a dedicated activist who is determined to put children first as the District 3 representative on the Prince George's County Board of Education. For 3 years, she served as the treasurer of the parent-teacher organization and chaired fundraising efforts for in-school arts programs, after-school programs, and teacher appreciation. She is a big proponent of the Board of Education educational equity policy adopted in 2019 and community schools policy adopted in 2018 that will bring expanded healthcare and social services to our students and families in partnership with government, business, nonprofit, and faith-based organizations. She sees this as a critical opportunity to move our school system forward. A believer that arts are essential in education and community, Ms. Boozer-Strother served as a board member and president of the Gateway Community Development Corporation from 2007 to 2009, which has driven the arts-centered economic revitalization of the Route 1 corridor. She has experience with building planning, budgeting, and construction through the oversight of the Gateway Arts Center, critical skills she brings to the Prince George's County Capital Improvement Program, better known as CIP. In her Gateway CDC leadership role and PTO treasurer role, she has worked successfully with elected officials at the municipal, county, and state level to bring resources to the children of Prince George's County. Ms. Boozer-Strother earned her MBA from the Colgate School of Business at American University, while serving as the executive director of Nationals Association. She is a certified association executive and founded a business in 2011 focused on association convention and events sponsorship fundraising. And board member Boozer-Strother's most recent accomplishment was she was very active in the initiation and the passing of the Climate Control Initiative for Prince George's County. And unfortunately, she could not be here tonight, but she is due the courtesy of letting the public know that she is a candidate for District 3. With that, I'll move to District 9. Our first District 9 to Mr. Kent Roberson. Kent Roberson currently works at a lobbying firm as an associate. He monitors federal legislation issues that include transportation, banking, finance, environmental, and housing. He is also an adjunct professor at the University of Maryland Global Campus, where he teaches government and political science classes. Originally from Memphis, Tennessee, Kent currently resides in Clinton with his wife, their 2 sons, and daughter. Kent is a proud graduate of Frederick Douglass High School in Upper Marlboro, where he received his bachelor's and master's degree in political science from Ball State University. He gained exposure to Capitol Hill while interning for U.S. Congressman Albert Wynn. He then served as a legislative assistant for a Maryland state delegate. In 2018, Kent was elected as the 25th District at-large Democratic Central Committee member. In 2020, Kent served as a member of Maryland's Electoral College to elect President Joseph R. Biden and Vice President Pamela D. Harris. In 2021, Kent was appointed as the African American Diversity Leadership Chair for the state of Maryland. Kent is a member of Ebenezer AME Church, where he serves as the Social Justice Minister. He is also the chairman of the Parks and Rec Board and is a dedicated volunteer at the Larkin Chase Nursing Home. Along with these activities, Kent is a member of the Prince George's County Young Democrats and South County Democratic Club. Ms. Thomas, Mr. Kent Roberson.
Mr. Roberson, welcome. Thank you for being here, and I'm going to ask you the same question. Over the past few years, students' disciplinary issues have increased, especially disrespect and verbal abuse towards the staff. Now, in order to ensure positive interactions and academic growth in the classroom, what policies would you consider changing or developing to decrease that behavior?
Yes, thank you first, Ms. Thornton Thomas and the NAACP for your leadership. Thank you, Dr. Miller and the South County Democratic Club for your leadership as well and for hosting this candidates forum. We appreciate the opportunity to speak before you on this evening. Going to your question, I just want to say I'm not going to reiterate what has been said because these are great initiatives that the other candidates have laid out. One thing I do want to point out is first our mental health capabilities that we definitely need to reiterate the fact that there is a need for mental health professionals, not only in our school system, but across the county and across the nation. We've seen that need, and I definitely think that there's something we definitely can partner with other entities, including schools, especially for those individuals that are in school for their counseling psychology degree, where they need the hours to receive those degrees. And I think those are great opportunities for us to tap into those opportunities that we have here in the state of Maryland and within the DMV region. Secondly, I also believe that there is a need where we also need to work with our law enforcement because, as was stated before by one of the candidates, that these are issues that sometimes are brought into the classroom, but they originate at home. And so sometimes we have individuals that enter the classroom because they have a discourse or discord within their home that has not been resolved. And sometimes law enforcement, or I should say the school system, is not made aware that law enforcement had to be called to a specific home. And so sometimes there is a need for a relationship with law enforcement to understand what is going on in the home, why individuals are in need of assistance, and ways that the school system can help to reinforce what is taking place outside of the classroom, because so often we bring what's outside the classroom into the classroom. And I think that's where we can start to bridge the gap, to begin addressing those problematic behaviors that we see within the classroom. Thank you once again for the opportunity to speak, and I yield the balance of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberson. Yeah.
Thank you. And next will be Ms. Lolita Walker, a mother who juggles time management, problem solving, and advocacy. A graduate of Prince George's County's District 9 who recognizes the greatness in her home district and realizes the endless possibilities that still exist. An industrial engineer and MBA who leverages critical thinking to continuously improve systems and processes. She's a corporate leader turned full-time entrepreneur who has experience creating a vision, setting direction, and building a community that embraces change. Ms. Walker is a small business owner who maximizes resources with limited funds, yet gives premium experiences with premium results. She's an international keynote speaker who leads and speaks with clarity, confidence, and commitment. A certified life, leadership, and executive coach who listens intently and helps propel you beyond where you stand today. Ms. Walker is a two-time author who voices what some struggle to articulate and helps bridge gaps that may otherwise keep you stuck in complacency. She's a podcaster who communicates openly and honestly, engaging in dialogue that challenges your thinking. And as an involved community leader, she is an active officer in her son's PTA, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and several boards that span industries. Currently, she is a PhD student who values efficiency, effectiveness, and facts. Ms. Walker is a candidate for the Board of Education District 9 who is ready and eager to connect, build, and thrive together. Lolita will use each of her individual skill sets to create linkages between parents, teachers, students, staff, administration, and the community to provide our scholars with the best education possible. Ms. Thornton, Ms. Walker.
Hello, Ms. Walker. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you doing tonight?
Fine, fine. I'm going to read the question to you as well. Over the past few years, students' disciplinary issues have increased, especially disrespect and verbal abuse towards the staff. In order to ensure positive interaction and academic growth in the classroom, what policies would you consider changing or developing to decrease that behavior?
Yes, so many of my peers have answered so eloquently tonight. And so I'll just build upon, the thought that it is imperative for us to connect across. And when I say connect across, really leaning in on policy procedures that lend themselves to incorporating our parents at the base level. Right. So some of what is necessary, and it was inside of my bio too, is the linkages between our parents, our teachers, our staff, our students. And when we can pull that together by way of PTSAs and incorporating our parents back into the schools to leverage their voice, to get them on board, to bring in our community resources, then collectively, it won't always be left on our teachers. So there's so many different aspects. I know you mentioned disciplinary, disrespect, and then getting them back engaged. But to get them back engaged, the thought is that if we connect across, we can then build up. We can build up together, and then we can thrive together. Some of those policies to me and procedures really look like tapping into the student, the whole student, but bringing our parents, our teachers, our staff, our students together. I am the appointed wellness liaison for my son's PTSA, and it's doing exactly that right now to really bridge our PTSA, our parents, teachers, staff, and our students with the school so that we can leverage the current resources that are there and then bring in the community. So everything will really be around honing back in on wellness collectively, honing back in on how we can work together to resolve issues, honing in on responsibility and accountability, and also bringing in, like some of my other peers have said, bringing in some of our community leaders, whether it be law enforcement or specialists that we already have with Prince George's County at the board level that are doing things in cybersecurity. So all of those things play a role, but first it's really understanding where are our gaps and then tapping into them specifically and strategically. I hope that added to the question.
Okay, thank you so very much, Ms. Moore.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Ms. Thornton, Ms. Thomas, I've been notified that Pam Boozer-Strother has come on board.
Oh, okay, wonderful. All right.
Have you let her in, Ms. Tara?
Yes, ma'am.
Boozer-Strother? I've already read your resume, so you can.
I appreciate it. I'm sorry, I'm like this floating person in the dark in my car in between events up here in the north. With your permission, Ms. Thornton, I'll move forward, but I don't want to just assume I should jump in. So please let me know.
Thank you, and welcome. Glad you were able to join us. I'm going to read a question that the other candidates answered, and this will give you a chance to also share your thoughts. Over the past few years, students' disciplinary issues have increased, especially disrespect and verbal abuse towards the staff. In order to ensure positive interaction and academic growth in the classroom, what policies would you consider changing or developing to decrease that behavior?
All right, thank you so much for the question. And I just want to, once again, thank you for the invitation. I appreciate the bridging of the South County and North County, and all of us getting a chance to hear from each other. And certainly a pleasure to be here with all the candidates and future colleagues. And I did want to say that I'm going to jump, I think, a little more where Ms. Walker was headed, because I think it is the missing piece, is around returning our parents and families and caregivers holistically back to our buildings after 2 years of closure from the pandemic and disruptions. We know that the stress on our students and families and our staff have been exacerbated by what we went through with virtual. And I know, as a parent of a now 7th grader at Hyattsville Middle who experienced the virtual as a 5th grader, I know exactly, how difficult this was on everybody and how we're still reemerging. I do think our Board of Education policies are really sound in terms of In 2019, we passed a sweeping educational equity policy, and that policy looks at every student through the framework of adverse childhood experiences as our number one view of looking at each child independently. And what are the resources that as a trauma-informed school system do we bring? And I think really where we are is building all of those services, certainly helped by the Kerwin Commission recommendations, the Blueprint for Maryland's Future funding, to bring those services in through the community schools model and through expanded budgets otherwise. And this is where Board of Education members can really work with Dr. Goldson on budget priorities. So if we are, great example is when I first joined the board in 2018, and then our first 2019 cycle, the board collectively said to Dr. Goldson, mental health is where we want to see a big budget shift. And we've made that happen over the years. And Dr. Goldson not only has expanded through the Blueprint funds, which we're fortunate to have, but also a commitment by the end of next school year, even with general funds, every single school will have a mental health practitioner, not just our community schools funded by the Blueprint. And so I think that's where boards together through policy, through a good working relationship with the CEO, can really make those sweeping changes. But I do want to say parents, bringing back parents, I feel like is now the missing piece. I think students need to see parents in the building. They need to see the teamwork between their teachers, the principals, and the parents. And the more we could get our parents back to events and our students seeing that, I think it's going to improve the climate overall in all of our buildings. And I would even say I definitely am committed to working on more long-term ways that parents could volunteer in the building during the day in ways that we lost over since 2016. And really developing a sound program where parents could come in and the things we used to do, lunch duty, reading to the kindergarten students, there are things that brought parents and caregivers and grandparents into our buildings every day. And I would love to see us get back to that. So thank you so much. Those are just some of my ideas for the coming years.
All right. Thank you so very much. And I'm glad you were able to get in with us. Okay. All right.
Round two.
Okay.
Ms. Thornton. Thomas.
All right. Okay. We're going to actually talk a little bit about parents and parent engagement and, of course, the community. So I'm really excited about this next question. And some of you touched on it just a little bit, but wanted to read a policy that is in existence right now. And that's under the board policy of 0105. The Board of Education supports the engagement of parents, family, and community for student success. Now, the board is committed to promoting the involvement of all parents of students. It is also committed to collaborating with the community as a participant in school governance and as an active partner. So the question to each of you is, what will you do to encourage that current individuals who are disengaged, engaged, or international parents who may not participate or do participate in governance? And how will you communicate this message to our entire community? And our first candidate is?
Oh, we'll start with, we'll end it with Ms. Walker, and we'll begin with Ms. Walker in round two.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that question. I love that question. I have been, this is just in my wheelhouse and something I'm so passionate about bringing our parents back. I love what Ms. Pamela just said. And so just want to build on that. You talked about how will we communicate, and you talked about what will we do differently inside of the schools. And so what we can do differently and more intently is exactly what we've really been talking about. It is bringing our parents back into the school in a very structured way. So where do we see our gaps? We know that we have teacher shortages. We know that we have students that are ready and willing to learn. We know that we have teachers that have not been trained with behavioral issues. We know that we're going to be having mental health professionals come into the school. So how can we pair all of those folks and say, this is what we need collectively inside of a year to best serve our children, and then divvy out the responsibilities, put a plan of action in place, and then have these rolling signups for parents to be able to fill those slots inside of the classrooms. I know that I am ready and willing to go into the classroom. I have written to the teachers and they're not quite there yet, but when we put some structures in place, it will look like help to not only our teachers and our staff, but it will also look like help and engagement from us as parents and also to our children. I remember my parents coming in as PTA professionals or PTA folks when I was younger, and it makes a difference inside of the classroom, right? When you have folks that are ready and willing to take small chunks, then we bite it in those small chunks and we collectively work in order to get the job done. That's what I would like to see done. The second piece is, how will we communicate that? Well, I'm all about communicating the value of our parent organizations. It is imperative that our parents join forces so that they can understand and have a collective voice. When we do that, we will walk so much more effectively and efficiently in our schools, and we will see our scholars rise. So how will we communicate? Well, we will talk as board members. As a board member, let me talk me. One of the things that I would like to do is to continue to have these monthly meetings within the school district. Absolutely. Come and ask questions and learn what's happening. I would love to have a newsletter, partnering with my message going out with these newsletters that are already happening inside of schools. I can go on, but I want to leave room for these amazing other folks that are on the call today. But there's so much that we can do inside of this space. Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Okay. And our next candidate.
Kent Roberson.
Hey, Mr. Roberson, I'm going to ask you the same question. What will you do to ensure that our current disengaged and engaged and international parents participate in governance, and how will you communicate this message to our entire community? I think you're on, okay, there we go.
Sorry. Thank you, sorry, Ms. Thornton-Thomas. Thank you so much for the question. This is a great question. As a parent of an elementary, a middle, and a high schooler, I definitely see the need for parent engagement. One thing that I do miss is the fact that now with my child just starting school is being able to go into the classroom and check and see how things are going, and to reinforce what our educators are sharing with our students as they're in the classroom. And so I definitely think this is a need. One thing you touched on, which I definitely, we can raise how we can engage, but it's also the fact, as you stated, not only the engaged parents that are ready and willing, but also the disengaged parents. And so there are many ways. I think one is the fact that as we expanded Zoom technology for those that need to get engaged with PTSA and knowing what's going on in the school system, one thing I appreciated from my son's middle school is the fact that we went to PTSA meetings that were via Zoom for those parents that cannot make it in time after work to a 6:30 or 7 p.m. meeting. And I think that's important for us to continue to engage that way and not go back to the way things used to be. As much as we would love to meet in person, that's not conducive to everyone's schedule. And I think we need to continue to do that in a way that use technology to our benefit instead of getting rid of it and going back to how things used to be. Secondly, you mentioned those international students, and my son who's in high school, I noticed they had a program in the evening and they had an interpreter that said everything in Spanish that was stated in English. And I think that's very important. As we talk about these newsletters, it's rare that I get both an English and Spanish version. And so I think that it's important that we continue to make sure that everything that goes out from the county is bilingual, at least, if not multilingual, when it goes out on behalf of the county. We're missing a large population of our growing international population, especially from those from the continent of Africa as well. We have a growing population of individuals from there. So we definitely need to tap into that. And that's a large population that is willing and able to engage if we actually can convey what is needed in their language. So I think that's important. One thing I also want to caveat is the fact that in the documents that were given, one thing that was highlighted is the fact that this would not be reported to the Department of Homeland Security. That is a real concern for our parents and for our students. And I think that we need to make sure that we are transparent in what, as we ask for involvement, what it is used for, and how we can engage parents to let them know that we will protect them as parents just as much as they are protecting their children. We want to ensure that they as parents are protected by the school board, to let them know that we want them to engage and not worry about what could take place regarding their status. And so these are ways outside of those parents that are already willing to engage that we can reach out to those disengaged and those international parents that have lacked engagement that we so much are in dire need of. Thank you so much for the question.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Roberson.
Miss Ashley Kearney.
Thank you for this question. So we're now.
I'm sorry, Ms. Would you like me to repeat it, or you've already heard in your mind? Great. Okay.
No, I heard it. Thank you so much for the offer. So even as a teacher during the pandemic, it was very hard to communicate with families because of the many platforms that schools were using to communicate. It was just so much that was inundating families and them being able to keep up. However, families did get used to the level of communication that was happening during virtual learning. As you know, when folks transition back to the school building, different capacities exist to where you can't actually communicate as much, things drop. You might even see Twitter pages not being updated since 2020 or 2021, like the frequency of which. So there's a misalignment in terms of our expectations of how families still want to engage with our schools. That said, I was able to convene a task force with parents and have them think about the impacts of COVID and what was happening in the households, and have meetings. And families did attend the Zoom meetings. They led, I was just simply a facilitator, a co-facilitator of those spaces. They did the surveys, they did the outreach, they came, they proposed to the principal. And so thinking about ways that we can use educators as liaisons to families to get things done, particularly when we think about the capacity. There were families who had a lot of time, and there were families who did not. So those types of buddy systems and understanding the demands of our families and respecting the fact that their engagement might look different from others. So one thing that I want to say is acknowledging also the histories that families have with the school system. Not everybody had a positive experience, whether it be themselves or with any of their children. So engaging them might look like restoring the harm that was done to them in so many ways. The second thing I would say is having clear expectation and a vision for why we want them to engage, where we want them to engage, how we want them to engage, and for what reason, and not just giving that information to them, but creating opportunities for us to co-create what we are communicating out and how we want folks to engage. There are families who are strong with social media. I have families who are strong with business and bringing them in. So we can use the strengths of some families where we might lack in some areas, and that can be a positive situation, and even creating a task force to look at that. To keep it short, I think certainly making sure that websites are updated. We are consolidating the information. We're being very strategic. We're being clear. I think that if we create those variety and we're flexible with the ways that families can engage, when do they show up the most? Kids are coming to school in many cases, they're registering, if they're getting vaccines, somehow they're getting communication. Where are they getting this communication for? How are they interacting with it? When do they show up to most? And then we can capitalize on those. So I think it's also looking at the data. And I'll go ahead and pass it to my other colleagues. Thank you so much for that question.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Kearney.
Branndon Jackson.
Mr. Jackson, would you like me to repeat the question, or you're okay with responding?
No, I'm fine for the question. Thank you for the opportunity. Do you guys hear me? Hello?
We're okay now. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think we're good now. So I agree with everything been said so far, but I'm an economist, so I want to offer a different perspective. But the first I want to say, as far as the community involvement, I think that's huge. And one of the things that I think will be key, and I hear that echo again, but one of the things that I think that will be key is reinstating that countywide PTO. I think allocating resources to elevate that group or reconfigure that group and get that group back into action, I think will be great, because we will have essentially like a ubiquitous arms wrapped around the whole entire county, where we can have entry points into every school and have a uniform message going around. I think that will be a really great tool to get people involved. The second thing that's why I want to peel it back and look at it from an economic perspective. So like, knocking on the doors and talking to the different constituents. I'm of the mind frame that parents, most of the parents that are not involved is not because there's a level of apathy that's have come over them in regards to their support for their children. But I also think that Prince George's County economically, I think it's economic conditions. We have concentrated pockets of wealth and resources, and then we have concentrated pockets of, poverty. And I think that and everything in between is just the disparity of the income levels, and I think and access to resources. And so what I think is that a lot of times you may have a lot of parent participation or drop off in certain communities, in certain areas, because parents may be time poor or resource poor. They may not have the luxury to take off work, the luxury to work remote, the flexibility with their schedule, to make some of the events and things like this. And I know sometimes people think they're excuses, but those are real things. So what I've been working with people from the delegation, and I think that's one of the things. Just to segue, opinion that I think that's one of the assets that a school board member should be able to work with, multiple moving parts of elected officials, because at the end of the day, we're all Team Prince George's County. We got to figure out, how to get things done for our county, every constituent, whether it's, from child to adult. We want to figure out how to put our county in the best situation. So I would definitely be willing to work with state legislators to partner with the state legislators, to partner with businesses to see if there can be a tax credit that can be a tax credit that can be afforded to businesses in order to encourage them or incentivize them to create like almost PTO, like paid time off for parents that are participating in their children's activities or teachers' meetings at schools. And I think that there will be a win-win for everybody. Teachers will be able, parents will be able to engage at levels I think that they would not have been if they were able to. I think parents, excuse me, I'm tongue-tied, but I think that parents will be able to engage more. I think businesses will be able to receive incentives and tax credits. And so I think they'll be interested in something like that. And I think the community as a whole will be better because parents will be more active in their children's education. So I'll definitely be willing to work with state legislators and local legislators and the business community to see how we can develop some type of incentive for allowing parents to get off work that aren't able to participate in their school and students' activities.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Jackson. And our next candidate
would be Ms. Boozer-Strother. Ms. Boozer-Strother, is she still with us? Ms. Boozer-Strother.
Yes, she's still there. Yeah.
She's okay. Did you hear the question, Ms. Boozer-Strother?
She's on mute, I believe.
Oh, you're on mute.
Okay, there we go.
I was not allowed to unmute myself, and I'm gonna just turn off the video because I think this is worse. But thank you so much for coming back around to me. So I thank you for all the responses and ideas that we've heard. I mean, the one thing that I wanted to lean in a bit to is the 6 pillars of governance of our schools model. Right now through the blueprint, we have 96 schools that are funded as community schools. And a few years ago in our partnership with the Prince George's County Educators Association, developed that our community schools in PGCPS would be defined by these 6 pillars of shared leadership. And that shared leadership model has created the steering committees at these 6 schools, but there's no limitation to being a 6 pillars model school, they're just, you may just not be a blueprint funded school around these concepts of having the parents and the teachers and the principal in regular meetings and making school-based decisions together. And I certainly think as a board, a big piece of our oversight in these coming years is the strength of this community schools model in our accountability to the blueprint, the accountability board, that we need to be showing the annual assessments, that we are hearing from the stakeholders and particularly the parents, the needs assessments, turning that into action and moving those programs together. I mean, that is the expectation. That is what we are being held accountable to. And so, when we look at that, I certainly think the opportunities around hybrid model of engagement, sometimes being in Zoom is just going to be more effective and gather more of the stakeholders together than an in-person meeting, and continuing that opportunity. And of course, the interpretation and translation services that the system has really built up over the last 4 years. And ever since, of course, the legislation that we have to, the system-wide every communication has to be in Spanish and French. But as we dig down into our schools, what is the predominant language of parents? Certainly here in many of the schools in my district, it's been, the PTAs and PTOs, some have been led by our Latino parents, and our meetings are led in Spanish and the interpretation is English. And that, has been a model for years for most of the schools in my district, which certainly I think we could share what that looks like. And other models, when I was a PTA leader at Mount Rainier Elementary years ago, when we recognized that breakfast time morning was a time where particularly our Latina moms and grandmoms would spend time with our parent engagement assistant, we realized we should start having a second PTO meeting a week. And the traditional Tuesday night was led in English with interpretation in Spanish. And then Friday mornings, we held the exact same agenda in Spanish and interpreted in English for attendees. So there's lots of different ways to work within the building. But of course, I think our biggest thing is, as I said earlier, is just that connectivity again of getting to be back in person to get back to the school-based governance. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. Mm-hmm.
Next will be Jenni Pompi.
Ms. Pompi, would you like for me to, hi, would you like for me to repeat the question, or you?
No, thank you. I'm good, but thank you for offering.
Okay.
I am, as a parent, I'm really passionate about parent engagement and community engagement. And I think what several of the other candidates have said really rings true for me is that we just need to get parents back in the building, because it doesn't matter if it's your mom or if it's someone else's mom. When you see a mom in the building, it changes the way you behave. And it's also, what's really great about that too is for parents who are able to be in the building, you really build relationships not only with your own children, but the children in your community. And that only makes community stronger. So I'm very excited to have our parents back in the building. And I think something else that Ms. Boozer-Strother said that I was also thinking about is, like, as far as getting parents more engaged, particularly our parents who are English language learners, is we need to meet them where they are, so is it sort of, is it breakfast after drop off, is it, schools having PTA meetings in the evenings and providing childcare and translation services and maybe even dinner for kids. What ways, like, how can we make this more appealing and easier for them? And I will say too, I've been to many PTA meetings this year, and every single one of them, the PTA presidents have told me that they have had more people attending their meetings than they have in years. So I think parents are ready to re-engage. So I think finding the right ways to re-engage them. We talked a little bit about community schools, which I also think is an excellent way to engage our families, through reading nights and math nights and, even English language classes for our parents. But also, as Ms. Boozer-Strother said, those don't need to just be in community schools. We have that model, and we can expand that model to a non-community school to engage those parents and to engage those community members. I have a lot of strong relationships in my District 2 communities, and I know questions that I get from a lot of my civic leaders are, how can we be more involved in the schools? What can we do for these schools? So I think a lot of our municipalities do have community outreach and community outreach services, and they also want to be more involved in schools. So, you know, helping them build those relationships and form those relationships and figure out what makes sense. Like for high school students, is it internships? For, you know, middle school students, is it coming in on career day? You know, just different things that might work for different people. Yeah, so I think that's all I'm going to say, because I think my colleagues here have said so many great things, and I'll leave it at that. Thanks so much.
Right. Thank you so very much. Okay, and our next candidate.
Jonathan Briggs.
Great, thank you so much. So I think how I thought about this as far as the policy goes is I really want to start by saying that I think the board's role, from how I would see it, is to provide support, to provide technical assistance to schools, and not necessarily mandating anything. So I would really think about how can we put together kind of almost a standard operating, you know, process or procedure that's going to support schools to kind of get up to speed with things that they could easily implement. And those things could be things such as family engagement at the beginning of the year. I think school leaders really encouraging teachers and setting some time aside for educators to go to the homes of parents. I think a lot of times, you know, we see kids coming to the schools, we encourage parents to come to the schools, but I think educators being able to go to the homes and see, you know, how the student is living, where they live, their experiences, I think gives, you know, educators so much insight into those students. And I think it also just builds really strong relationships with parents. I think they love that. I think that they feel more bought in to the school, and I think that they feel that they're equal partners. I think other things are infrastructure investments. So the board kind of figuring out budgetarily, like what specific sets of money do we need to set aside for things like investments in technology, for if we want to have, you know, more social media advertising, or if we want to do more translation services. You know, there's obviously going to be money that's going to be involved in that stuff. So I think really building out a plan that encourages schools to say, hey, we got a pot of money, you can use it for these specific things. And here are some kind of recommendations around how you can use it. Translations, folks have already said that. Advertising, I think also thinking about the fact that intergenerationally parents are a little bit younger, or if those that are younger, you know, finding ways to really engage them and excite them and bring them into the school. I definitely think having longer school hours, that gets to the infrastructure piece. Do we need to have more school staff? You know, do we need to have additional staff that'll be staying in schools a little bit longer? And I think to a point that someone made earlier around making sure that we're really making the school an inviting space for parents, knowing that if they're working until, you know, 2 or 5 o'clock, we're offering opportunities at schools when they can come and they can visit and they can participate. I think in addition to PTAs, I think also having some type of community engagement committee. So really encouraging principals to have a set of folks and a diverse set of folks. So it would almost be the board saying, hey, as you're building out those committees, it's not just parents that say, hey, I want to participate, you know, but to have diverse perspectives, you know, parents coming from different backgrounds, teachers that represent different backgrounds, I think would really help to make sure that all voices are heard and it's an inclusive space. And then the other piece is, I think around, I love someone mentioned making sure that we're also taking into account that all parents didn't have an enjoyable experience in school. And so we really have to think about mindset shifts as we're inviting parents back into schools and re-engaging them in these meaningful ways. How can we do that? And I think that we can make schools more inviting by making parents equal contributors, equal partners in both academic as well as school goals. So I think that, again, is inviting them, having kind of family engagement nights where, you know, schools are hosting. And these are things that schools are already doing. But I think really building out a longer term pathway towards, like, how can we actually put together, it's not necessarily a PTA or an advisory committee, but it's something that engages parents around the goals that the school has. So if they have a 5-year goal of, you know, all students are going to be college ready and we're going to have them, you know, 90% of our students are graduating, you know, one time and ready for college. I think bringing parents in, that excites them. And I think that, you know, figuring out how we can make them equal partners and engage them in ways. And of course, those are for the parents that want to do it. But I think encouraging schools to build systems to think through how they can support. And then I think the board offering the technical assistance around, what they could look like, and bringing in other thought partners. I think that's also professional development. So as they're thinking about these boards and principals are putting those things together, who are the kind of experts in the area that we can bring in to really encourage those discussions, push those discussions further, and plan out, I think, something that all schools can kind of easily implement, of course, with a set aside of money that's available for them to tap into.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Briggs. All right.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. At this point in time, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the vice chair, the current vice chair of the Prince George's County Board of Education, and Ms. Sonia Williams. And she sent in the chat room a question that I'm going to use as our round 3 question for all the candidates. Prince George's County Public Schools is responsible for nearly 60% of the county budget, $2.3 billion. The future of 130,000 plus students and the current livelihood of 20,000 employees. As a member of the Board of Education, please describe how you will serve the community, the school community. What is your long-term vision for success and how it will be measured? And we will close out with these because it's a 3-part question. So the first part is, as a member of the Board of Education, please describe how you will serve the community. What is your long-term vision for success and how will it be measured? We will begin now with Ashley Kearney.
Okay, I might need those 3 parts. I was trying to go find it in the chat just now, so I can.
Well, let's do. No, she sent it directly to me.
Oh, okay.
So I will repeat it. As a member of the Board of Education, please describe how you will serve the school community.
Mm-hmm.
That's part 1.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in terms of serving the school community, the first thing is putting in a lot of footwork. I can't tell you how many times I'm getting mailers now, as election appears, but when the school year starts, I have 2 nieces going to school, but the amount of mailers that come in my mailbox then is slim to none, right? So the constituent services, ramping that up, making sure that we're putting in the footwork necessary to meet people where they are. Also serving school communities by listening to them. I'm going to a lot of civic association meetings, and I can go to one week and one another week, and it's the same people leaders talking to leaders, and thinking about, okay, if the leaders are talking to leaders, who's talking to the people, and not to discredit the amount of work that goes into planning for those and talking to people on the back end, but really shifting the way me as a board member, thinking about the way that I engage with people to make meetings more active, more interactive, and reframing so it's not such a static situation, and really interrogating my role as a member in that. So supporting schools with funding as well. I think thinking about those one-time stipends, we have the ESSER funding and things like that. We can get really creative about one-time spending so there's not these long-term commitments that might put a strain on us. And I think as not only as an educator to listen to the context of what's happening in the schools, but thinking of ways that even myself is an asset in providing guidance. I can walk into schools and tell you what good instruction looks like. I can think about the programs that are necessary. So really expounding on what my strengths are, what my talents are, and not just limiting it to the scope of the board position, but other ways that we can get involved as well to help support our schools. And I also want to name that a lot of these events that I'm attending with the vendors, really thinking about ways that we can pair them and match them to be more, to maximize their potential in the school community is helpful too. I know community schools is part of that. I'm part of a national working group on community schools actually. So thinking about the ways in which we can support in that way as well. But it comes down to knowing the schools, knowing their needs, and that starts with listening first. The second part of that question, please.
Please describe what is your long-term vision for success and how will it be measured?
I mean, we measure by students graduating prepared to go to the next step. So we look at these numbers. We look at the numbers. Student achievement has to be higher. Students need to be able to read. They need to be able to add. They need to be prepared for college. They need to be prepared for work. So that's one measurement of success. Thinking about the values of our families, and families feel like the student are getting what they need or what they send them to school for. So that's another measurement of success. For engagement is a measure, enrollment is a measure. Where we know that there are several thousand. I think there was an article that came out about 11,000 or so students came since 2014. Another 7,000 are expected to come. So outside of those numbers, how are we retaining students in the schools, students that are graduating from our schools, their pride in the schools. So really thinking about all different types of measures of success that says people come, they stay, they love it. That comes through not only just survey satisfaction, but the level of involvement that are happening within our schools over time. My biggest vision is to see our students get more involved. I talked to the student leader on the board when we were at the polls, and he said only 8 people applied for that position. I would like a lot of students from District 6 to apply for the position and just get involved. So success for me looks like people getting involved, understanding what's going on, co-creating some of these things, and really shifting what it looks like to engage our families and leaders. Third part of the question, please.
Well, that was it.
That was it? Okay, thank you so much for those.
Thank you. Branndon Jackson, I'll repeat the question. As a member of the Board of Education, please describe how you will serve the school community, and what is your long-term vision for success, and how will it be measured?
Yeah, so as a Board of Education member, our responsibility is, and I think that one of the over the entire enterprise of the school, and then I think it was Miss Sonia Williams who stated a question and talking about over $2 billion of assets that we will have. I mean, funding. And so my background, and that's I feel like that is probably going to be one of the strongest things that I have, is that I have 8 years of experience, 8 years of education, and 3 degrees in the finance and economics field. So I believe that I can have this financial prowess that can go very far, that I have this financial prowess that will go very far in watching over our dollars, making sure that our dollars are maximized and that we're allocating all of our resources in the best way possible. I think that being a champion of how we spend our dollars and making sure that we spend them wisely, I think that that will be one of the greatest strengths that I can leverage bringing to the board. Can you read the second part of that question? I'm sorry.
What is your long-term vision for success, and how will it be measured?
Yeah, and so I think my long-term vision for success, first we got to understand what success actually looks like, because success looks different to every person, and I think it's an individual thing. But as far as for me, I believe that our school can't be successful in the first place if we don't have the village approach. And that's one of the marquee things in my platform, pillars in my platform. It's like, we can have the best teachers, we can have the best facilities, we can have, the best technology and equipment. But the marquee indicator for any successful education system is the involvement of the community. And what success looks like for me as a successful administration or a successful tenure as a school board member is, how will I be able to be a champion for the school system in the community? I want to get the community involved at the most intricate levels. And I believe that there is so much synergy out there. Right now, we look at the Board of Education as a silo. It's like the Board of Education is here, government is there, and then the community is a whole different dimension. We have to look at it like a salad. It's all pieces of the salad. And I believe that there's a lot of overlap with government agency services that can be implemented into the schools, with different people from the business community can create experiential learning opportunities for students in schools, with funding and donation philanthropy, and then with the senior community being able to give back, mentor. It's so many different things that we have what's inside of our community that can be assets. And it takes a synergistic approach in order to elevate our school system as a whole. And so what success looks like for me in my tenure will be, how well can I get the community involved? And I think how you measure that is by developing key performance indicators. So I understand all of the, I guess the staples with test scores and, achievement, all of those great things. I believe that as you grade yourself individually as your tenure as a school board member, I think we need to develop, or I would develop, key performance indicators measured in the coming back. Sorry, but I think that I would have key performance indicators to see, am I reaching these milestones each quarter? I want to be able to do a certain amount of things, whether it's touch a certain amount of principals and students, engage with the community. How many times was I able to find opportunities to leverage resources different? How many times was I able to find opportunities or find resources in the community to bring to the school? So I think that I would definitely start a key performance indicator list, and then I can make it public and say, hey, this is what I'm grading myself personally. And I want to make let the community know, and like, you can grade me on how I'm operating as a community advocate. And then what was the last part of that question?
Well, how will you measure it? And you answered that question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Next will be, and I appreciate all of you keeping your responses down to 2 to 3 minutes, and being courteous to your other fellow candidates. Next will be Pam Boozer-Strother. This should be an easy question for you. Is she still with us?
She just said that she had to leave.
Okay.
She just sent a chat message.
Then Jenni, Pompi, it's on you. As a member of the Board of Education, please describe how you will serve the community. What is your long-term vision for success, and how will it be measured? Is Ms. Pompi? Oh, you unmute yourself, Ms. Pompi.
Okay, sorry, it wouldn't let me unmute myself at first. It said I couldn't do it, so sorry. Anyways, so I think, how will I serve my community? The first question, and thanks to Kent Roberson for typing those questions in there. I appreciate it. I think, first of all, is constituent services number one. This is something that my district has been lacking for a long time, and that people really want. They want a school board member who will engage with them, who will meet with them, who will answer their calls. My civic leaders, they want to be involved, more involved with the school board. So, meeting with them regularly, and, possibly doing, quarterly stakeholder meetings to make sure that all of my stakeholders are included, have a chance to ask me questions, know what's going on in this community, because I just think that's really important, and constituent services are a huge part of this job. Sometimes parents and other stakeholders just need to know, which levers to push. And as board members, part of our job is helping them figure out which levers they can push. So I think that's how I will really be connected to my community. And as far as my vision for long-term success is, like, I want Prince George's County Public Schools to be the most successful schools in the state. I send my kids to these schools. I'm proud of these schools. I love these schools. I want our schools to be, I want this to be the school system where teachers want to come and teach. I want our school system to be the school system that's graduating the most college and career ready students. I want our achievement gap to be the smallest. All of these things are what I want to see for our school. And these are the things that I dream for our school. And as far as how we measure success, I mean, there's obviously different markers of success. And a couple of the other folks have touched on this, but, I think, looking at test scores is part of it, but it's not all of it, right? Because our test scores don't really tell us what's going on in our schools and with our individual students. So I think if we're really going to measure success and track progress, we need to be really realistic about it. And we need to look at our individual schools and see what are the challenges that our individual schools are facing, and what benchmarks are appropriate for those schools. Because we do have a lot of diversity in our population, particularly here where I live in North County, and our school populations vary so much. So you can't really judge success in one school against success in another school. It doesn't make any sense to do that. So I think we need to make sure that we have, appropriate benchmarks in place for appropriate institutions. And I think, making sure that we're really, connecting home and school. Like, I think that is another way that we'll be able to measure our success. Like, are our parents invested? Are they partnering with us, with their teachers? Do the teachers have that support that they need, in discipline and education and in other areas? So yeah, I think I'll end it there. And thanks so much for the question.
Thank you. Mr. Briggs.
Yeah, thank you. Echoing everyone. Thank you so much for the question. And for me, I'm interpreting this as kind of like an individual, me as a board member being an individual, how would I respond? So to that point, I think that definitely first to the question, how will you serve your community? The biggest piece is accessibility. And I think of accessibility in a number of different ways, but I would break it into 3 components, which is stakeholder engagement, that is parents, community members, and others, teacher and principal engagement, which I think is very important. And then I think also, working with local leaders in the community. I think that it's very important to make sure that I'm taking into account and breaking that apart and thinking ahead right now. How will I really work to involve and engage and be accessible to all of those individuals? I think, one of the things that I really want to make sure that I'm doing is being a strong advocate. So in any space that I'm in, how will I serve my community is speaking up for the needs of the community, being as engaged and also diplomatic about what I'm hearing from different stakeholders, and relaying that information as honestly and as accurate as I can, while at the same time, really wanting to move the ball forward with whatever it is that we're working on. So whether that's in a board meeting or whether that is just talking to a different stakeholder that, is making an investment or something else, I think my goal is ultimately to really provide the information from what I'm hearing. Parents are saying this, community members are saying this, students are feeling this way, and this is what you need to know. So being accessible, available, and also providing accurate information. My long-term vision really, to be specific, I think it gets to what's happening right now. I think we're coming back after a pandemic and students are dealing with a lot, both mental health as well as academic. There are a lot of challenges that parents are concerned about. And so I really want to take that seriously. So my long-term vision and in day one is really focusing in on the academic and the mental and social emotional aspects of students. I think that our schools have resources to provide, wraparound services and others, but I think really thinking about what more can we do, what robust services can we provide to really support students to get them on track and close the gaps that existed and they were already in existence before the pandemic, but have just been exacerbated. I think also the long-term vision is really community engagement. How can I continue to work with the community, involve parents, engage them, and how can I measure myself? I think that, that is, it could be feedback from parents. But I think are we moving in the direction where we're closer to where we want to go? And so I think as a board, that would probably shape my thinking is, what do we want to accomplish as far as it pertains to community engagement? And then are we getting close there? Are, families more satisfied? Are they engaged? Are they happy? And then the last thing I would say is, I think also, I don't want to leave out our educators. Our principals and our teachers have gone through a lot. And we continue to see them going through a lot. And the teacher shortage is a huge thing. And that there's a lot that teachers and educators are saying to us that we have to be responsive to. And so I don't want that to be on the kind of back end of my thinking. And so I think also, listening to principals, listening to teachers, what do they need from us? And then I think really working to make sure that we're implementing something, so whether it is a 5-year, 10-year, plan out, what are some kind of small chunks and bites at the apple, I guess is the best term I'll use, to really start to address those issues. And I think it would be nice to have a survey, especially with teachers and educators, how do you feel the board is doing, in addressing your issues? How am I doing in addressing your issues as a board member? And I think it'd be good for us to kind of reflect on that and to look at that. And that's good for us to measure, to know, what is the community saying? How do they feel? Because I think those are very real things. So that's my response.
Thank you, Mr. Briggs. Mr. Roberson.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Board Member Williams, for the question. My answer is fairly simple. One, how will I serve the community? One is to collaborate with parents, with educators, with principals, with board members, and with those up and down, those elected leaders who we work with to bring resources back to the community. And that's the way I plan to serve the community, is to leverage those opportunities that we have, those opportunities that we've missed, and to make sure that we're collaborating and to work in conjunction with the CEO and not in opposition to, and the same with the county executive, and the same with officials in the county council. The benefit of being the chair of the Prince George's County Democratic Central Committee is I already have those relationships. So I'm grateful that I've already worked with these individuals, and I'm grateful to be able to bring those relationships to the school board where I can work with those individuals. How will I measure success? Really, honestly, as I've talked to parents, one thing is clear, that a lot of them are sending their children to either a school that's outside of their zone district, to go to a school within the school system that is a better fit for their child, or they're sending their children to public school, to private schools. And so how I would measure success is, one, we increase the number of students that actually go to their zone district. When you start seeing an increase in the student population that are actually leaving private schools to actually go to their zone school, then I know that we measure success. When I started hearing parents talk about how proud they are over their school that they're zoned into, and not over a school that they have to qualify for, not out of a school that they have to go into a specialty program for, then I know that we're successful. And you can measure that by numbers, and we can definitely see the numbers of individuals that are going to their zone school versus those that are going outside of their zone school. And that's how we can measure. And I thank you, Ms. Richardson, for putting that, because definitely we need to be able to measure that by keeping it smart, by specific and measurable and achievable. And that is achievable. It is measurable. And it's specific. And the fact is that until we reach that goal, it makes no sense for us to continue to put forth efforts in all of these other schools, in all these other schools that are already doing well. And yet we still have a declining number of students attending some of these other schools, and they continue to lose resources. And so that's how I plan to measure success. And I, once again, thank you all for the question, and thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you, Mr. Roberson. Ms. Walker, as a
Yeah.
member, do I need to repeat the question?
Oh, no, I'm clear.
Okay.
Thank you so much. First, I just want to say thank you to all of the folks that are on Facebook and are already writing in with their thoughts and their comments on how we can improve as school board members should we be elected. So that's super important to know that we have the community that's right here leaning all the way in. As I think about the three questions that Sonia asked, she asked, how will I serve my community? And I will continue to do what I am doing, and then I will level up a bit. So I am inside of my community in so many varied spaces, but I think what's most important is leveraging those relationships to add a newness to the board. I'm not a politician. So when I come in, there is a newness that's going to be brought. There's nothing that's coming from the past, but it is right now. Where are we? Let's meet exactly where we are right now. And now let's elevate ourselves as we connect across, build up, and then thrive together, which takes me into my second piece of, this part that she asked, what is my vision for success? And that's exactly it. It's more than a motto. It really is a thought to try to put a strategic framework in place about connecting across. We talked about that a lot today, really about not only the collaboration, but the community. How do we engage it? What does community look like and feel like? Not only those people outside of our school system, but inside as well. And then the culture. What is the culture and how are we going to shift that? Because when we think about starting from the foundation, right, this linkage, then we think about building, we really have to think about the culture and climate. And that's so super important. And it's not done overnight, but it's coming in and looking with fresh eyes and saying, where is it that we stand? So when I think about a vision for success, it literally is this framework of connecting across, building up, and thriving together, because I truly believe that when we start from the ground up and we engage not only our parents, our teachers, our students, our staff, but also when we engage our community, we do things and shift a little bit differently. The way I will measure that, I heard a lot of amazing things today, but I think also alongside these SMART goals is also just to sit and say, how are we measuring them today? How are we measuring them today? What are our scores today? Where do we want to improve? Because the reality is that the world is shifting a little bit. It is. It's shifting a lot, to be quite honest. A pandemic, we've never had it. So now that we have feedback, now that we know what's happening inside of our schools, when we're connected inside these parent organizations, and some of our schools don't even have parent organizations. So to close it all out, my goal would be, as far as I look at success about this connection that's happening at the ground level, it really really is to say, how many more parent organizations are we able to build from the ground up? How are we doing with awareness and overall communication? And then that last piece there is, I want to measure participation, right? Sometimes we measure with financial goals, but what's the participation rate? And the goal is 100% participation rate. And let's get the folks in that are, not so engaged right now. I hope that answered the question. Thank you so much, Dr. Miller.
Thank you. This brings a close to our questions. And I was looking in the chat room to see if there were any questions that are different, but they aren't. Some of them were just agreeing to some of the comments that many of you have made. Ms. Thomas, did you have anything else?
Well, actually, first of all, thank each and every one of you. As a former school board member, I know the struggles. I know how complicated it is, how much time it takes. There's no money in the job, let's be honest, and lots of work. And so if you're really dedicated to this, which obviously you are, or you wouldn't have gone through this process, you're going to find a lot of obstacles in your way. But the most important thing I say to you is that it's about oversight, because you will be responsible for making sure that that child graduates in the 12th grade and is competent enough to take the test to get them into college or into a vocational setting and be successful. So your job is to make sure that you're sharing leadership amongst our community, that you're actually finding ways to produce accountability, because we talk about accountability all the time. There is not always accountability, and we don't know what it is. Someone talked about, how do we measure things? That's one way. How do we measure accountability? And one of the other things I'd like to end up with as well is, parents are so important. And if you don't get them involved, if you don't encourage them to participate, and if you don't visit all the schools, and if you don't know your principals, and you don't know your leaders in your district, you're not going to be as successful as you want. So we're hoping that you keep those things in mind. It's very important. But my very last thing is civility. If you are not a calm and soothing influence on our communities, then you will not have the success that you want. So whenever there is an opportunity for us to have discussion, as long as we do it in the most positive way, I think you will have the support of the community. That is what's so very important. And I look forward to coming back to you guys and asking the same questions over and over again. And then I'm looking for resolutions, which I know you're going to give me, because we will be behind the door and we will be there waving you on and supporting you in any way that we possibly can. I just need you to make sure that you're working hard, because we're going to work hard to support you. Whoever is that special person that gets in office, we will be there. And if those of you who are not as successful in making this move, we're still going to expect some good things out of you, because we hope and pray that you might work for some other area or also participate in another part of our government. So I want to just thank you so much for doing this. It's a hard life, I know. And it's going to be harder, and the hours are going to be strong. But you guys, I know, will do a great job, and I want to be there with you. So just keep in mind, we will be watching. All right. So just think about that. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas, and I thank the NAACP also for its participation. We have 15 minutes left. We have more, but we want to keep it at 2 hours. And I'd like to have each candidate make a closing statement. But before going to the closing statement, there's a question in the chat room for all of you. Do you feel that, and this is a yes or no, and if you want to elaborate, you only have 30 seconds. Do you feel that the strategic plan is a tool that can be used to monitor the performance of our CEO and success of programs? Anybody can answer if you choose to.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. No one else wanted to respond. Okay. Then I
wasn't sure who's going to unmute, but I want to say that the strategic plan should be a North Star for everyone. So I don't think that we should only hold the CEO accountable to it. I think that is how we set goals at every level. Thank you for the opportunity to answer.
Thank you, Ms. Kearney. Any other comments?
Yes, this is Jenni.
Pompi.
I just wanted to say briefly, sort of to go back behind what Ashley's saying is that, that strategic plan, it's not just for our CEO, it's for, it's for all of us. It's for the Board of Education too. And that's also how we should be holding ourselves accountable. So, I think accountability is a two-way street or a multi-way street, right? Like we are all stakeholders in the education of our children. It's not all on the CEO, it's also on the board members, it's on parents, it's on our educators, it's on our communities. And I do think that we can use the strategic plan to hold ourselves accountable. Thanks.
Okay. Well, we'll start with.
Dr. Wilson. Dr. Wilson, I'm so sorry. That's from Morgan State University, President Wilson. Dr. Juanita, really quickly, I answered yes first, and I stick by that. But when I look at this question right here, I love what my partners have said is, the performance of our CEO and the success of our programs. Our strategic plan is absolutely the strategic goal. And when we set our objectives and our goals around that, then absolutely part of our role as the board members are to have not only governance, but also oversight for our CEO. And so I just wanted to add that piece right there that I didn't say when I said yes, absolutely. So it is still yes, absolutely, and the back end. Thanks so much.
And thank you. And I just wanted to reiterate that the role of the board member is governance, oversight, and our oversight of the day-to-day operations, not oversight of the operations, but what the CEO does on a day-to-day basis. The school system is run by the CEO. The board provides the support to the administration. So you all have really provided a lot of insight in terms of your goals and perspectives of what the role of a board member is. And I wish all of you success.
Dr. Miller, can I just wanted to add to that. Sorry to interrupt.
Who is that?
Jonathan Briggs, District 2.
I apologize. Yeah.
No problem. I just wanted to say yes, echo everything that everyone said, and then to say also, I think as far as holding the CEO accountable, which you just explained, I think it's really supporting our district community members in being advocates for change. So I think it's about accountability, it's about transparency, and then supporting them in understanding how they can be involved and engaged. A large part of this discussion was about that. And so I think that to your point, maybe we're not necessarily saying anything to CEO, but we are encouraging our board members or our community members to be engaged and to know what's happening all themselves.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, each of you has 1 minute to give a closing statement. And Mr. Briggs, we'll start with you, if you want to give one.
I absolutely do.
1 minute.
Okay, well, 1 minute. Okay, well, I'm just going to say I'm running because I believe our schools are navigating, as I already mentioned, a lot after the pandemic, and we need the correct folks to help get our schools back on track. As a former educator and as an education policy professional, I've done this work. While working as a teacher, I've closed significant gaps in achievement in schools with students significantly below grade level. And I also understand how important it is to get this right from a research stance. So I want to bring this expertise to the table to support a more robust school system. My priorities are addressing student mental health, school infrastructure improvement, strengthening family and community engagement, and then also taking advantage of state and federal funding opportunities. And these priorities include investments in human capital needs, such as high quality professional learning, instructional materials, connectivity, access, and a strong, supported, and diverse education workforce. And my goal is ultimately to be a lifeline between the community and the board. And so I really hope to work in deep partnership with all of you, and just very excited for the opportunity. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Jenni, Pompi.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Miller, for the opportunity. As a PGCPS parent and a longtime resident of this county, I have a very deep understanding that our schools not only help our students grow, but they also help our county grow. And as your school board member, I will do what's best for our families, our schools, and I'll work to create a community in which parents feel heard, teachers feel valued, and children are able to learn in safe, healthy, and inclusive environments. I will prioritize transparent communication and community engagement, which I'm already doing. I will do whatever I can to support our teachers and our students during and post-pandemic. I will always advocate for educational equity and safe, healthy, inclusive environments for all of our students, as well as championing state-of-the-art schools and student-centered learning. But most importantly, I'm running because I really and truly believe we need more people, more members of our Board of Education who are willing to put our children over politics.
Time. Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
You. Okay, next, Jonathan, Branndon Jackson. Branndon Jackson, 1 minute.
1 minute, yes. So I got in this race initially because I'm a father. And I came into parenthood pretty uniquely. My father passed away. To make a long story short, I took custody of my youngest brother that's 14 years younger than me and my nephew. And I was sent one to private school and one to public school, and I saw the disparity in education. And now I have a 6-month-old child, and I want to help elevate the school system so it can be prepared, better prepared to accommodate him when he come along, because I want to send him to PGCPS schools as well. I believe that I want to take my skill set from the corporate world, the private and the public sector, and my education to help elevate our school system. And the things that my platform that I'm standing for is the village approach, getting all of us involved from a synergistic approach. I mean, government, the community, constituents, the school systems, parents, teachers, all of us, everybody has to have a stake into elevating our school system. I want to make sure that we support our teachers, making sure that we get teachers pay and giving them the support that they need. Also, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Ashley Kearney.
Oh Lord. Okay, so thank you for the opportunity again to be here this evening. When I decided to run, it was a combination of experiences. My students got me into coalition and organizing, the educators. So I stand to support our students and our educators moving forward. I made a lifetime commitment to serve. I'm using my talents, my expertise, and my passion for education to drive the county forward. I have a vested interest in this county, not because of my parents, but also because my nieces and all students deserve a quality education, regardless of background and or experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, you only took 25 seconds. Okay, next, Kent Roberson.
I'll use the last 25 seconds to say my website is www.ashleykearneyforschoolboard.com. Thank you for telling me that time.
Okay, Kent Roberson.
So maybe I should start with that, Ashley. First, my website is kentroberson.org, and you can follow me. I would love your support as I run for School Board District 9, which includes Clinton, Brandywine, Upper Marlboro, and Accokeek. And I appreciate the South County Democratic Club and the NAACP for this opportunity. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at any time with any concerns that you might have. And I look forward to working with the school board to further our future, not because my children are in the school system, but because I am a product of the Prince George's County school system, and I know the greatness that lies within it. Thank you once again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Roberson. And last but not least, Ms. Walker.
Yes, thank you so much. I am looking forward to be your next District 9 Board of Education representative. I am so excited about this journey, and I am really excited about connecting across, building up, and thriving together. I can't say that enough because it's more than a motto. It is an action plan. I am looking forward to you voting for me connecting with you, and me bringing you into the fold as well as our community. I am the last name right before the questions, and so I can't wait for you to get out the support. Thank you so much for this opportunity to everyone who is here. And I am at Lolita, the number 4, PGCPS D9. Look in and get involved. We have to get involved if we want our students, our staff, and our teachers to really be on board with success. At the end of the day, that's exactly what we want. So let's do it together. Thanks so much, Dr. Miller.
Thank you. And before closing, I'd like to make an announcement for our one of our members who works for the Board of Elections. There's a shortage of judges, and it is critical to have judges at the election polls. Prince George's County Board of Elections is seeking volunteers and neighbors to be election judges. You will be provided the orientation needed to successfully carry out the role of a judge, and you will be compensated. Thank you, Tara, for posting this. And if you need more information, you can visit the Prince George's County Board of Elections. And what else? I think that's the main thing we need to let the public know. Without judges, things can happen. So we need election judges, and anyone of voting age, I should put it that way, is eligible to serve as a judge. As I said, the orientation that's needed to carry out this position will be provided by the Board of Elections. And all I can say is we need you to talk to, as Senator Benson would say, talk to Lottie, Dottie, and everybody. Let them know we need election judges. And more importantly, or most importantly, November 8th, get out the vote. Knock on your neighbor's door. Knock on or call, make phone calls. If someone needs a ride to the polls, contact someone. There are volunteers that will escort seniors. Now, a lot of seniors have chosen to do the mail-in ballots. However, there are those that want to actually carry their ballot to the polling site. So with that, I encourage all of you to go out and get our citizens to be active participants in the voting process and get us some judges. With that, this brings our program, our forum to a close, and we've done very well. It's 8:28. This is the South County Democratic Club. Dues are once a year. They're $30. We have interesting speakers coming in on a monthly basis, or when we have our monthly meetings. We really during the regular seasons, we meet 4 times a year. But during an election season, we meet 9 months out of the year. So with that, I look forward to all of you running successful races and being successful, and look forward to having you on our school board. It is an interesting position. It's part-time, but it's very, 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 how can I say, it's beneficial to us as taxpayers to see how our tax dollars are being utilized through the agency that receives the bulk of the county funds that come from the state. So with that, I just say thank you. I applaud all of you for your awesome and outstanding perspectives in terms of the policies and procedures and duties and responsibilities of a board member. With that, be safe, be careful, and get out the vote. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.